We're going to talk about that quite a bit more. That one is huge. We're going to think about it differently. Acceptance. Sometimes at UT we tell students they're going to have to accept the reality of the fact this is the University of Texas. This isn't where they went to high school. So sometimes we have to accept the reality of the situation, and within that reality take action and plan. And we want to reach out and use our social support, and we'll talk about that quite a bit more. And there's emotional support and there's instrumental support. So sometimes people need, and there are lots of types of support, but mainly we'll think about emotional support and instrumental support. This would be a growth mindset. Now let me just ask you, if you're stressed long term and you use these type of coping strategies, over time do you have less stress or more stress? Less. Now let's talk for a minute about emotion-focused coping strategies, because we've all used them. The first one will be denial. Maybe if I ignore that long enough, it'll go away, right? Maybe if I ignore it long enough, it'll go away. That's denial. Or some type of disengagement. Behavioral disengagement is no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to have an effect, no matter what I try, so we just reduce our effort or give up. Or we distract ourselves mentally, watch TV, check out, however we distract ourselves. Or we focus on it and blame ourselves. Or we vent and complain. Help me feel normal. I'm not the only one that does that, right? We all do that. Now, in the short term, particularly when things are out of our control, this can calm us down and be very helpful, right? In the short term, emotion-focused coping strategies, when we're out of control, no influence, very helpful. But think about it. Over the long term, if you continue to use these strategies, is it more stress in your life or less stress in your life? Long term, if you use these strategies, it's more, yeah. So now let's think about how would I get from emotion-focused to problem-focused. So when I am in emotion-focused coping strategies, we have to first accept the fact that we're there. Acceptance and change, those words go in that order. So I accept it. Isn't it interesting? I'm venting. Now I'm blaming myself. All the things that we do. So it's okay as long as I can have the intention to get back to problem-focused coping. So I think to myself, gosh, I'm disengaging. I'm aware of it, and I kind of work the crowd or know the people around me to see who I can go to, some wise person that I could go to. Let's say I went to this young lady, and I'm telling her how upset I am, and she's listening, and all I'm wanting her to do is put some deposits into my emotional bank account, so to speak, right? Kind of like a good therapist, until I ask her, what can I do about it? And if she kind of intervenes too soon to tell me what I can do about it, and I kind of go back to that, she's going to have to back off a little bit. You with me there? And when I come to her, I want to ask her, what can I do? And together, she's going to help me figure out what action to take. She's going to help me plan. She'll help me reframe it, accept the reality, and get some social support. So you ought to go meet, this person. She's awesome. She can help you. So that is coping strategies. Okay, so let's go back to our model. We could spend an hour on this, but if you thought about in your life with different situations that you're dealing with, how you cope long term, then we would ask you, how do the coping strategies we use link to the 4 responses? And these are activities you can do with students that you have, right? Can you just visualize that? Then you could come back and you could say, well, if I use problem-focused coping strategies, action, planning, reframing, acceptance, social support, which of the 4 is it linked to? Step up, bounce up, put up, give up. Go ahead and say it. Come on, am I doing an okay job? Step up, yeah. And yeah, so problem-focused coping strategies, more adaptive strategies are linked to bounce up and step up. You see that? Long term, yep. Emotion-focused coping strategies used over the long term are linked to which? to bottom 2. So that's pretty, isn't that interesting? So it's just like, well, given that, that helps people figure out where they want to be, right? So let's go here. So back to the model. So let's talk for just a minute about when we're overwhelmed and we are disrupted. It feels kind of chaotic. I want to talk for just a minute about Ilia-Prigogine. Anybody heard of Ilia-Prigogine? Any physics majors? Well, that's okay. I hadn't heard of Ilia-Prigogine either, and my father was my physics teacher, but Ilia-Prigogine was a professor at the University of Texas at Austin. Happy to know that, yay, Ryan. He won a Nobel Prize for perturbation theory. And I checked his book out at, turned it back in, but for the most part, I can explain on a very simple level. So perturbation theory that won him a Nobel Prize says, when a natural system is far from equilibrium, like homeostasis, it will begin to perturbate. And when it is perturbating, it's very vulnerable or fragile. But if a kid can maintain the, shaking, it has tremendous potential to grow. And if you think about that, like if you tell me, add 10 more pounds, Mary, and I'm lifting weights, I got you, I'll spot you. I might be shaking, right? And if I can hang in there and not overtrain or undertrain, I've got tremendous potential to grow. Yes? And that's what it's all about in the other dimensions of well-being as well. So, when we're stressed, it's just like I just try to say, add 10 more pounds. The difference between physical dimension and all the other dimensions, emotional, psychological, social, a lot of times I plan, let's go exercise tomorrow at 10. Now I'm planning to stress myself. The psychological stress, all of a sudden, I'm in the garage, I forgot to bring my Starbucks coffee with me, so that's, I'm like, no problem. There'd be coffee in there. Then I get in there to an empty ballroom. Now, the challenge for me then is to say, instead of, oh my God, or say, oh good. Now I have an opportunity because I'm in the wrong building at an empty ballroom. I could say, yeah, you're horrible on directions. I could say 1,000,001 things, right? And it's really hard not to say 1,000,001 things, particularly when I could get some validation. I'm sure if I text one of my college kids, they would be like, oh, they'd be texting, the other college kids going, yeah, mom's lost again. Or I could really give myself a hard time about that. Or I could say, hey, now I have an opportunity to grow. So lifting weights and all the other dimensions is about taking responsibility. It's about focusing on empowering interpretations, envisioning everything as a way, have an interpretation that brings us power and creating meaningful connections. And I also want to say that the main thing we're trying to do is get back to resilience. We're really trying to bounce back and recover. That's difficult enough, I think, in this day and time. And we want to have moments of growth. But a moment of growth isn't going to happen every day or even every week, maybe not even every month. But we're wanting moments of that. I want to talk about one more thing, and that is Barbara Fredrickson's work from UNC Chapel Hill. And that's kind of cool for me because I'm from North Carolina and I went to UNC. And Barbara Fredrickson wrote a book called Positivity. And she says that positive emotions fuel resilience. It's a great book. You can also Google it online and you can track your positive emotions and all that. It's really good work. But what I like to share with my students is that this notion of a tipping point, how you can you say, how much do you have to raise the temperature of ice to get it to tip over to water? So her research is all about how much do you have to raise the positivity in your life, the positive emotions, to get your life to tip from stuck in a rut, floundering, to flourishing. And she says it's 3 to 1. based on her research. So if I walk around and I have a little bit of joy, and I feel love and awe, wonder, pride, and then I'm a little irritated. Right? So as long as I got 3 to 1, then my life is going to be more flourishing than stuck in a rut, according to Fredrickson. And I like the analogy of the sailboat, because the sail is 3 times the keel. So that's how I think about it, is 3 positive emotions, the sail, to 1 negative emotion, the keel. And it also helps me from the standpoint that we're not saying no negative emotions, because negative emotions have a place, and sometimes they're appropriate. But 3 to 1 will help fuel our resilience. One more thing I wanted to say about that is that her theory is called the broaden and build theory of positive emotions. And what she's saying is that positive emotions open us up, broaden our thinking, broaden our thought-action repertoire. So have you ever lost your keys, or, like, for example, if I got lost with directions, which happens a lot, if I start being negative, then I'm so confused then I can't think straight. Is that, you've experienced that? But if I'm positive and I stay calm, then I'm more likely to find my way from the other side of campus over here. Right? So it's like the daylily, where sunshine opens up the daylily and it closes in darkness. So the broaden and build theory of positive emotions. So positive emotions open us up, and over time build resources. So you might really check her work out. All right, so now let's talk about each of these 3, responsibility, interpretations, and connection, one at a time. So the first one is just owning your power to choose and create. It's just taking responsibility. So we could talk about it above the line, below the line. So let's go below the line, for example. Even at the very bottom might be, we could write unconscious below denial, probably, right? Unconscious, we're not even conscious of it. Would you agree? Then we could come up one level and there's a problem, but let's say we're in denial. Denial. Maybe if I ignore this long enough, it'll go away. Can I grow if I'm in denial? No growth. So let's say I move up another notch, and there is a problem, but it's your fault. So now, can I grow? I can't grow because you need to do all the growing. So now I move up another notch, and I say, well, there is a problem, but I rationalize it away. So still, I can't grow, correct? So now I move up another one. And this is the one that I really can't stand, because we do a lot of, during the day, we do a lot of blaming and making excuses. But at the end of the day, I think too often we drive home and we blame ourselves. We beat ourselves up. So now can I grow? I can't grow because I'm spending all my time beating myself up. So all that's below the line. So what we want to do is move above the line and have small little wins. So one way you could do that with your students or with yourself is to think about these circles that you've heard of these circles, yes? This student, of all the classes I've learned and experienced in my 30 years, my favorite is still 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I love that class. 7 habits are just so easy. Have y'all done that, right? I hear. Yeah. But do you like it? I just love that class. So this is then the circle of influence and the circle of concern. So of course, the outer circle, if you're out there in that outer circle, complaining, criticizing, condemning, comparing, competing, you're probably below the line. And you need to get yourself back within your circle of influence. And we tell all of our students, your circle of influence is so much bigger than you think it is, where you're kind and patient, but you want something to happen, so you have to be smart. You want to be a model, not a critic, a light, not a judge, part of the solution, not part of the problem. So you want to stay within your circle of influence. So we could talk about that too. We do talk a lot about that. The other thing is I try to get students to practice this, and I try to practice it myself, over and over and over. So you might get in your mind's eye, since this is just the condensed version, but you might think of the last time that you experienced a stressful situation that you might want to work on. I wouldn't start with one that's too heavy. And I would start with a personal one versus a work one, but you can start with a work one if you like. Some places like to just do work ones. But just think of a time when you were stressed. And we're going to say that, how do you know you might have been stressed? Probably because you're below the line. Shaming or blaming or venting or in denial, right? Everybody, I mean, y'all have all got one, right? Help me feel normal on that, kid. Y'all have all got one? Okay. So what you want to do is watch a replay of it as if you're watching a movie. So you just rewind the whole thing, put it up here on the big screen, and you go sit in the back of the ballroom. Now, why would you do that? Why would you sit in the back of the ballroom? Get some distance from it. To get some distance from it. And then you're just going to watch it with no judgment. So step 2, identify your position on the responsibility model. So as the movie starts rolling along, you go, gosh, I'm really kind of giving my colleague a hard time. Or I made excuses for these students' performance. And you just tried it with no judgment. Isn't that interesting? Right? And then I shamed myself. Gosh, isn't that interesting? I was really hard on myself with no judgment. So you identify your position on the responsibility model. It may be, I took 20% responsibility, but gosh, I really was blaming others for about 20%, and the rest I spent shaming myself. Isn't that interesting how hard I am on myself with no judgment? Then you go to number 3, which takes a tremendous amount of humility, and you ask your heart how you feel about the movie you just watched. And probably if this is working and this is something that you really wanted to change, you would say, gosh, I'd like to behave differently. I'm not so happy with the movie I just watched. Yes? You're getting that in your mind's eye, but you're not shaming yourself. You're just going, isn't that interesting? And then you go to 4. So now we're kind of back to Covey now, habit 2. Begin with the end in mind, right? So you create a mental image of what you want to happen. You're creating a new movie of what you want to happen. And when I do this with students, I might bring a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle and throw all the pieces on the table and say, put it together. And they say, well, gosh, Mary, I can't put it together. Well, what's the question they ask me? There's the 500 pieces, and they want to know, yeah, where's the box? Where's the picture? And so I use that to teach them, you got to begin with the end in mind. You've got to have a mental image of what it is that you want. And once you have a mental image of what you want, and it's what you want and what you're in control of, not, a mental image of how, like, my husband should behave or my problem student should behave, but it's a mental image of what I'm wanting. And then habit 5 is to take responsibility for producing it with small wins. And this is where the discipline and the commitment to the image is so important, because initially if I gave you guys the box, you'd get the edge pieces and it would be kind of easy, and then when you get to the middle it's going to be difficult. And we could just do this over and over and over and over. But the more we practice that, the more we are going to realize that I'm spending more and more of my time above the line. I'm taking more and more responsibility. We're not perfect. We drop down probably some every day, every other day, but more and more of our life we're taking responsibility. Please check my time. Okay. So the second one is about how we think. It was the positive reframing on the adaptive coping strategies. So we call it here focusing on empowering interpretation. So it's placing your attention on understanding situations, events, relationships, really everything, in ways that bring power to you as opposed to giving your power away, diminishing your power. So this is really our beliefs. This is how we think. This is our beliefs. This is what the speaker this morning talked about, Carol Dweck, a growth mindset. This is having a growth mindset. I want to take just a minute. I can explain this real simple. Just a minute and talk about how our thinking relates to our health. This was a student of mine's dissertation. She's a professor at East Carolina University now. It's another student I'm so proud of. So went on into the psychology department. So let's look at the primary and secondary appraisals. So you learn that in psychology. We all have a cognitive appraisal of the stressor. And first we have a primary appraisal. So in a primary appraisal, we think to ourselves, gosh, is this important? We think, is it important? Is it worth me doing something about? Now, the reason I highlight that is half the time if we stop and ask ourselves, is this important? Is it worth doing something about? What's the answer? No. So we let it go. If the answer to your first primary appraisal is, yeah, this stressor is important, then we're going to go to the secondary appraisal, and we're going to ask ourselves, do I have the resources necessary to handle it? And what do we want you to say? Yes. It may be yes, but I don't know how I'm going to handle it, but we want you to say yes. Because if you say yes, you're going to feel challenged, and if you say no, you're going to feel threatened, and if you say no and you're threatened, and this dissertation looked at your cardiovascular system, your heart rate's up, your blood pressure's up, your endocrine system, you got more cortisol circulating, and your immune system is suppressed. But if you say, this is important to me, and I think I can do it, and you have a challenge appraisal, then your health is going to be better. Yes? So let's talk about how you could work on that. This is one of the best things I learned when I went back to school at 40. And I like it because it's simple. A, B, C, D, E. I don't know if you've thought about, if you've seen this before, but let's go back to you thinking about either the same situation or a different situation in your mind's eye. So I want you to think, now we're working on how you think, your beliefs. And we want to first let's get a situation, well, we might not go back to the same situation for just a minute. Let's go the other way. Let's think of a stressful situation that happened to you in the last couple days that you feel like you handled very well, or pretty well. You're proud of yourself. So, so we'll do this together. I'm going to pick last night. Another direction one. I messed up directions again. I almost got there and then I missed the exit. So that was my adversity. Adversity or activating event was, I got all the way to Fort Worth and I missed my turn. and I even had the phone. So what was my belief? I said, isn't that interesting? I had my phone, got all the way here, and I missed my turn. Oh, would my kids get a laugh about this? I think I'm going to be okay. I got plenty of time, and it's not dark yet. So that was my thinking. But I don't think I'm going to share this with my college kids, because boy, would they get a laugh out of that. But I'm okay. And then I looked at my phone, it said I was 3 minutes away from the hotel, so I thought, everything's fine. This is good. So now the consequence was I felt kind of okay. I felt okay, yes? And my behavior stayed above the line. I looked at my phone, I concentrated on how to get to the hotel, and I didn't go below the line, denial, shaming, blaming. Yes, you see? So I had enough energy left. I could skip dispute. There was nothing to dispute. And I just had some energy. I got to the hotel, and I had a nice night. Right? So what's the point? In response to adversity or something that activates you, if your beliefs, B beliefs, are empowering, realistic yet empowering, and you believe them, you'll probably go to C consequence and feel okay and stay above the line. And you'll have enough energy to get through your day. Yeah? But if we take the opposite, and we say, think of an adversity, go back to the one you originally had when maybe you were below the line. If you think in response to that, if you have negative beliefs, let's just think of a student that fails an exam. How about that? Or a student that's doing poorly. They're activated. Their belief might be, I'm not smart enough, I can't do this, I'm dumb, all the things they tell themselves. When they tell themselves that, the C consequence is they're going to feel bad. and their behavior is going to go below the line, probably to self-blame. They're going to shame themselves. They might make some excuses. They might blame the professor. They may go into denial. So we got to go to D and get some evidence to dispute it. So I tell students, if you weren't smart enough to get into Texas, we wouldn't have admitted you. How do you know you're going to fail the class? This is only the first quiz. On and on and on, getting some evidence to dispute their belief and then help them turn it around. Realistic thoughts to turn it around. Now, if we can't get any evidence initially, and they are what I call creating their own hell, then we try to distract. Like I might say, Mary, 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 stop. Or go down the hall and get some water. Or if I have a student in my office that's so upset, or a faculty member over in the faculty ombud's office that is so upset, I say, hang on a minute, I'm going to get something to drink. Can I get you something to drink? I'm just like time out, you know? And then I go back, and then I hopefully, once I reframe it in a way that helps me, I notice I have more energy. So we're going to go to, I want to share one thing with you. Here's another book I want to recommend to you read. Have you read this book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg? This is a great book because there are some habits that people have a hard time changing. Like, let's think of alcohol. This is the example I'm going to talk about. Eating disorder, gambling. Some people have a hard time changing their behavior. It gets in our neurological pathways. It's pretty real. So I like to point out to people, you can't extinguish a bad habit, but you can change it because you've got this river probably that's flowing deep, full of water, and we're going to have to. We can't get that to go away. We're going to dry it up, and we're going to start a new pathway, a new river. So we're going to talk. This book talks about cues and rewards in a way that I like it. So the way that you're going to change the bad habit that you're struggling with is you keep the same cue and the same reward, and you insert a new routine, new keystone habits. He talks about. So, for example, let's think of alcohol. The cue for an alcoholic is anxiety, typically. Something triggers, and they drink. That's the routine. And then the reward is they're calm. Yes? So now let's just think about why AA is so successful. We keep that same cue. People are anxious. But the routine is now, what is it, for 40 days or whatever AA is, you've got to go to this every day. You go to support. And that support is the new routine, new keystone behaviors. Every day. You might not think you can, but you just do it. You just do the new routine. And it calms you down. The same way they work with a young lady with an eating disorder. And we need to be careful at our institutions. We're so much about obesity today, and we are having an increasing number of kids struggling with an eating disorder, that then they are trapped and they can't change it, and they just have to start with a different routine. So this is a powerful book, and I encourage you to take a look at that. We can talk more about that if you like afterwards, but I want to move on to the third one, which is meaningful connections. This is all about social support. This is about having relationships in your life, seeking and maintaining relationships that create or add a great deal of significance to your life. And this is where I had this one. Let's see, I'm going to come down here. I got my little ball. This is a picture that a kid in my freshman seminar gave me of these two preemies, and the one on the left was dying. The nurse put him in the same incubator, and there's your social support, and that kid's vital signs came back. So let me just ask you, who should you connect with? Who do you have to connect with first?
Self.
Yourself. So I got this little ball here, it has two magnets on it. I could light myself up. Yeah? So I asked this table if they could help me, and so First I'll do it with this young lady. So you see if we can make this work. You see how we can light that up? And if we let go, okay, got to not make that. Whoop. You see that? We're going to do it the whole table. Now hold your hands up over there, and now let go over there, and hold back. Okay, so one more time. Okay, again. Oh, it worked. Cool, huh? Thank you. That's kind of cool, isn't it? So, let's see, let me advance this. So, do you know people that walk in a room and light the room up? And you know people that walk in the room and turn the bulb off? So, this is an activity that I do with students so they can think about all the people that they see daily and write their name in there, and all the people that they see weekly and write their name, and monthly, and if yearly out on the side if they want. And then they can go back, and all the people that make the bulb come on, they can put a plus, and all the people that make the bulb go out, they can put a minus. And then we encourage students to rearrange their life such that they're around people that give them energy and light their life up. Would you agree? Okay, so how am I doing on time? Okay. Yeah, all right, so this one, now I want to talk about self-leadership. This is the most powerful thing I think I learned when I went back to school. So I want to talk about who we really are, and who I am is who you are, and who you are, and who you are, and we're all the same. And our self-leadership is at the core of our well-being. So whatever dimensions we think of wellness, the self is in the middle. And so I want you to think of the self as your inner leader, an active, compassionate inner leader containing the perspective, confidence, and vision that's necessary to lead your internal life, your relationship with yourself, and your external life, your relationship with other people, harmoniously and sensitively. So this is like the best teacher, the best coach, the best parent. That's who you are. And so let's think about who we are. So the main thing that we are is calm. These all start with C. And I tried to factor analyze them actually with a data set, and it's unidimensional, although calm is the most important one. So this is who we are when we're ourselves. We are calm. We are the eye of the storm. We aren't overcome by fight or flight or frozen. We have a sense of calm. And the calmer we are, we have a sense of clarity, which means we see the reality of the way things are. Beginner's mind. We see the reality of the way things are. And we're not, a lot of people are like, I'm such an expert, let me tell you how it is. Beginner's mind. We see the reality, and when we see it, we have a sense of curiosity about it. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting, with the intent to understand, not to judge? People say, if you understood, you wouldn't judge, because judging and understanding are mutually exclusive. So we have a sense of calm. We see with clarity. We're curious about that with the intent to understand. We have compassion. We live open-handed, open-hearted. We also have a sense of confidence. We're in the present moment, knowing that we're confident. We're not worrying about the future. We're not reliving the past. Those Covey fans, it's not that, what does he say? It's not the snake that bites you. It's chasing that sucker that drives the poison to the heart. So we're in the present moment. We're confident that we can handle it. We might not know how we're going to handle it, but we're going to figure it out. We have the courage to do what we need to do. And so we take action. And when all the negativity is lessened, our innate creativity can emerge. It's kind of like Fredrickson's broaden and build theory of positive emotions. And we have a sense of connectedness. It's kind of like wave and ocean. We're each an individual wave, and we're the ocean, not two, not one. There's a sense of connection, and we have a sense of contentment. We may want some things to change, but we have a sense of contentment with where we are. And so when we are who we really are, we are in this energy. And let me also tell you, when we're in this energy, it's impossible not to take responsibility, think in ways that empower you, the growth mindset, and connect. Impossible not to do it. But now, what I found fascinating about this work is that, well, first of all, haven't you all been in this energy? Yeah, we've all been in this energy. This is who we are. But let's think for just a second about when you're not in this energy, how are you feeling? And let's just, there's two main ways we're feeling. There's probably a lot of ways we're feeling, but there's two main ways we're feeling when we're not in this energy. What's the number one way we're feeling? Anxious, I heard. Yep, anxious is the number one. Sometimes people will say depressed, that's pretty severe down the line. Fear, anxiety, we're scared. When we're not who we really are, that's the number one thing we're feeling. That's the number one med, I believe, in the country. It's not the number one, it's pretty close. Some form of anxiety. Now, if we're not in self-energy and we're not in some form of anxiety, what's the other emotion that we are? Anger. Yes, thank you, anger. Yeah. So what we say is that you're not angry, a part of you is angry. You're not anxious because who you really are is this. A part of you is anxious. A part of you is scared, probably for some good reason. So that's where, you can sit as two people and have a discussion, or I could sit with my colleague and have a discussion. But I'm trying to get some distance from the part of me that's not who I really am. Yes? So there's a book called Internal Family Systems Theory. There's a theory and a therapy, but that's basically what it is. And when you are in this energy, it's impossible not to take responsibility, not to think in empowering ways, and not to connect. Okay, I've got just two more slides. So what I want to guarantee you is that if you work the curriculum every day, and it's the kind of thing where I can't store it up, like if I lay down on the floor, I probably couldn't, not probably, I couldn't do 50 push-ups. Again, as Covey used to talk about, I love this one. Now, Ryan could probably come up here and lay down and do 50 push-ups. But all of us could come back in a year and lay down and do 50 push-ups, but we'd have to pay a price, correct? So you can't store it up. It's a daily thing. But if you worked on it over time, things that once bothered you, do you see where it says adverse event? You won't be line 1 anymore. You'll be line 2, which means it won't push you down as far. Do you see that? Furthermore, it'll take more of an adverse event to disrupt you in the first place. That's powerful, and that will happen. I promise you that. Now, some people tell me, this is one thing I learned too when I went back to school. Have you ever heard the expression, your core issues are your core issues? So it may be when certain things happen, they still slam you all the way down. But what used to take you a long time to recover, line 1, won't take you as long, line 2. And that's pretty much it. Now let me tell you, Dr. Christine told me I was going to stay here, and thank you for that. I want to tell you one thing that I'm going to share, but I also want to encourage you to, what works for one school is not going to work for the other school. So you take it and you adapt it to your school. So right now I work with African Americans that have type 2 diabetes, and I just went over the online curriculum that I have. When I go out to the community clinics, it doesn't always work, and we're growing all the time. This is how I do it now. So I talk with people about getting a positive mindset. That's Fredrickson's work from UNC. Once you've got positive mindset, and that's Carol Dweck's, that's a growth mindset, positive emotions, positive mindset, then we're going to work on a tiny behavior change that's part of your routine. So we're going to take your current routine and have a tiny behavior change. We're going to get a strong social support system. We're going to get a cheerleader and a coach, and we're going to take your environment and help it to be supportive. one will change your environment, but also a part of the environment is your reward. So every time you might do a tiny behavior, you might go however you go, but I might go, yay, I'm awesome. Or, as one of my diabetics said last week, yay, I did it. And she's about 400 pounds, and if every time she can make a tiny behavior change, and she can go, yay, I did it. Yay, I got out of bed this morning and came to class. And then I say, yay. So you adapt it however it works for you and your setting. And thank you very much for having me.
Or want more information about those modules, you'll be able to speak to her then. I'm going to mention one last time to please complete both sides of the general session evaluation and leave that with us at the registration table, because this